Ooh, that is stinky.
7.1 out of 10.
It still meets the...
What the fuck? Wait, what? They gave it a 7? Yeah, that's some trash. The cons being loadouts and repetitive arenas, so they must have graded it very harshly on the... Have you seen the top 10 most disliked IGN reviews of all time? That got recommended to me recently. Let's see. I'm curious. I'm going to take a couple guesses here on a few of them. I think Deathloop is going to be on here. Well, actually, no. This might be going in the opposite direction of giving low scores to great games. Okay, if it's that, then the water one, obviously, that's a given. What are some other, like, really alarming ones? I actually can't think of any off the top of my head. I can only think of extremely high scores to games that absolutely didn't deserve it. I can't think of any low games to games that deserved higher.
Video game journalists. Inscrutable folk, but in many ways, we should be thanking them, because every now and then we're usually fighting amongst ourselves to call a brief truce, congregate around the dislike button, and fight back against a common enemy. And with IGN being the poster child for bad video game journalism, I thought I'd create this list of the top 10 most disliked IGN reviews of all time. Because what brings gamers together more than
Bloodwig playing Master Duel? That's what I like to hear. Love Yu-Gi-Oh!
So, coming in at number 10, we have their review of Call of Duty Black Ops 3 from 2015, sitting at a respectable 19,000 dislikes. Why?
That's not bad for IGN.
IGN once again gave a Call of Duty game a stupidly high score of 9.2 out of 10, with 0 cons. If it has no cons, why not give it a 10 then? See?
To be fair, and I will never go to bat for IGN, but to be fair, just because there's no complaints doesn't mean the game is like a masterpiece or perfect. Like, I do disagree, like, if you can't think of anything negative, then that means it's perfect. No, it doesn't mean that. Like, it's great at everything it does, but it doesn't mean it's like the perfect product everyone's going to love.
A 10 then. See, not only do we get angry when IGN rate a game too low, we get just as angry when they rate a game too high.
I don't remember Black Ops 3 being bad.
Franchise like Call of Duty, which releases the same boring game year after year, and IGN keeps giving them 9s out of 10s. And what really pisses on our chips is when they rate games that are clearly more innovative, original, with better mechanics, graphics and gameplay lower than the latest Call of Duty game. So keep this score in mind as we move on down the list.
I don't remember Black Ops 3 well enough to know if it's...
We have their Sonic Unleashed review from 2008.
Man, we're going way back. What the fuck?
The reviewer basically tears the game to shreds.
There's one thing you should know about Sonic Unleashed before spending your hard-earned money on it. It's a big piece of garbage. Big piece of garbage. Indeed, it's games like this that make reviewers rethink their lives. Now,
it's not that bad.
When it comes to Sonic games.
It's fine.
Someone at Sega hates the Hedgehog with all his might, and he's going about trying to sabotage the franchise with these awful games.
Yet he still ends up somehow giving the game a 4.5. He claims the jump button is unresponsive, then proceeds to jump over the boost ramp to his death.
The jump button can be fatally unresponsive at times, and it's just a lot of trial and error gameplay that can get a little bit repetitive after a while.
And his hot take on why he shouldn't have to upgrade Sonic's speed is so fresh.
I mean, really, do I need to pay to upgrade Sonic's speed? Shouldn't Sonic be as fast as he can be from the get-go? Isn't that the reason why I bought a Sonic game in the first place? Oh, and you can cleanse people's souls by taking pictures of them. I'm not even joking about that.
That's fucking hype,
though. In the world of video games, why would taking a picture to cleanse someone's soul be so far-fetched? I mean, he knows he's playing a game in which he's controlling an anthropomorphic werewolf hedgehog, doesn't he? But at the end of the day, by 2008 standards, Sonic Unleashed wasn't that bad. Gamers were just annoyed at another IGN reviewer haphazardly reviewing a game they clearly had.
It's not like an amazing game, but it's fine. I remember Unleashed being okay. Like, I didn't hate it.
Sitting at a cozy 21,000 dislikes, their 2016 review of Uncharted 4 is at number 8. So, what were we angry about this time?
Though it's let down by a lack of imagination and some self-indulgence, especially in a third act that drags on far too long.
A 9 out of 10. The dreaded, bloated third act. You know a game...
That's not even wrong. I actually said something very similar back when I first beat this game. That is very fair. That is super fair. Like, that's just Uncharted fans being salty. That's a very fair criticism.
Game's gonna be good when IGN give it a 9 out of 10 and we still come after them with pitchforks. Oh, I love us. But IGN have to meet us halfway. They can't give Black Ops 3 a 9.2.
Yeah, if you're gonna... So this is... I think this is fair. It is a much better game than Black Ops 3, for sure. But I think they just grade it differently, right? Like, I feel like it's not far-fetched to be like, for a fucking Call of Duty multiplayer shooter, 9.2 makes sense, and then grade Uncharted differently. It's two different people on two different, very different games. But yeah, if you're going to compare direct scores, then yeah, it's a little odd that Uncharted 4 would be lower than Black Ops 3.
Black Ops 3 a 9.2 no cons, and Uncharted 4 a 9, calling its third act bloated and saying it has a curious lack of imagination when the entirety of Black Ops 3 is a bloated third act.
Man, this video is actually... like, the video is actually convincing me IGN's done an alright job with some of this shit. I've been like a big IGN hate watcher for a minute, but I completely agree with them on Uncharted 4. That is super fair criticism. And Black Ops 3 was good. Like, it's not the best. 9.2 is high, but it was good.
Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition slashes its way into our number 7 slot with 24,000 dislikes. Now,
no horse in this race.
Has all the hallmarks of a classic bad IGN review. Firstly, the review contains a massive spoiler where they show, without warning, a late game unlockable character in the menu screen which would spoil the whole first half of the game. Now, you'd think IGN would take the video down, edit out the spoiler, and re-upload it. But instead, they decided to leave this pinned comment in the comment section. Lazy bastards. Next, the reviewer goes on to call Melia,
one of the weaker characters from the main campaign,
a sentiment Xenoblade fans strongly disagree with, and then calls the character Dunban Duncan. This time, however, they did edit out the mistake. But even in the re-edit, he still pronounces the name wrong, with a horrendous drop in audio quality, which sounds like he did the voice edits on one of these.
RPG, as the story goes, to some really weird places that are as confusing as they are preposterous. The core Xenoblade experience remains intact here, lovable meathead Ryan, or the stoic and inscrutable Dunban.
They call Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition
the best version of Xenoblade Chronicles we've ever had.
Giving it an 8 out of 10. Which is a lower score than they gave the original release and 3DS port. Work that one out.
Don't know Xenoblade, no horse in that race. Well, I know Xenoblade, I haven't played it.
At number 6 is their Shin Megami Tensei 5 review
with
36,000 dislikes. And IGN managed to piss everyone off within the first 6 seconds of the review.
Shin Megami Tensei 5 feels like the edgier, less sociable younger brother of Persona 5.
The reviewer complains about how certain aspects
Isn't
of the
Persona
game
5 a spin-off of Shin Megami Tensei?
Which to Shin Megami Tensei fans is the entire point. It's not so much a standalone review of Shin Megami Tensei 5, but more a video comparing two different series and taking marks off of one game because it's not like the other.
Where SMT5 consistently fell short for me as a massive Persona fan, though, was the writing. It takes
you can never do that.
20 hours to find
even having not played this game, there's no point in comparing it to a completely different game.
And figuring out what's going on, in contrast to Persona 5, which makes things personal right away. I just couldn't shake the feeling that this was Persona without the heart. Without the unforgettable companion characters, the potent personal story, the incredible soundtrack, and the jaw-dropping twists and turns.
Giving the game an 8, with the only negatives being that it's not like Persona, is mental, and fans of the Shin Megami Tensei series were absolutely right to call this one out.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. If his main complaint was it's not similar to Persona, then that's some dog shit, agreed.
Things are hotting up now. Doom 2016 blasts its way in at number 5 with a healthy 42,000 dislikes.
Wait, what? Didn't they give this a good score?
On about how Doom 2016 feels too Doom.
For some, this is exactly what Doom should be because it resembles the 1993 game of the same name. But with all due respect, those are desperately low expectations. but it doesn't really distinguish itself by recreating 25-year-old gameplay.
2 minutes and 15 seconds is all the time he gives to reviewing Doom's main campaign before moving on to the multiplayer.
Oh, the multiplayer was bad.
Fixed power-up placement and shortcuts give experienced players who know the map an advantage.
No. Really? Do you mean to tell me that if players learn the maps and best weapon locations, they have an advantage?
This makes the decision to
the multiplayer was bad. That's fair.
A Call of Duty style leveling system that much stranger, because it gives experienced players another leg up with access to better weapons and more powerful demon runes.
So experienced players that put more time and effort into the multiplayer.
No, it's even a multiplayer genre. It's even a multiplayer genre I like, but Doom 2016 just did not do it well. I was not a fan of the multiplayer, and I was pretty excited for it. I even played the beta. Or, was it a beta? What did they release? Was it a tech preview? I don't remember now. It's been so many years. But they released the multiplayer a bit early. It just wasn't that good. I wanted it to be good, though, but it was just, eh.
You're blowing my mind, IGN! Blowing my mind! So what was the verdict on one of the best shooters to have come out in the last 15 years?
Ooh, that is stinky.
7.1 out of 10.
It still meets
What the fuck? Wait, what? They gave it a 7? Yeah, that's some trash. The cons being loadouts and repetitive arenas, so they must have graded it very harshly on the multiplayer, thinking that Doom was mainly a multiplayer title. Yikes. 2016 was overrated. Man, I couldn't disagree more. I recently replayed that too. That game is so fucking good and is still good. And the speedrun goes hard. Eternal's better, but 2016 is still good.
0.1 out of 10.
It still meets the high bar Call of Duty fans expect.
Amazingly, we have a tie at our number 4 spot between two different Pokemon game reviews. Pokemon Alpha Sapphire Omega Ruby and Pokemon Sword and Shield.
Oh, they gave Sword and Shield a great score, didn't they?
5,000 dislikes. And believe it or not, Sapphire Ruby is probably the most infamous review on this list because it gave birth to the most popular IGN meme, Too much water.
Yeah.
It's not a new complaint, but the Hoenn region is still imbalanced type-wise, heavily favoring water Pokemon. It's especially noticeable in Alpha Sapphire since the villainous Team Aqua uses a lot of water types. It just feels like there are water Pokemon in nearly every battle, and I have an overleveled Pikachu to show for it. You also have to navigate many bodies of water, which makes much of the late game incredibly tedious.
Other than saying the game has too much water and too many hidden moves, she doesn't seem to have anything else negative to say about the remaster.
I didn't play the remaster.
As understanding and compassionate as they may be, were just perplexed as to why having too much water would have such a heavy effect on the overall rating of the game, which the reviewer gives a 7.8. So politely picking up their pitchforks,
that might be a fair overall score. Couldn't tell you I didn't play it.
Review
Stupid complaint though.
A meme so powerful it now completely embodies the entire bad video game journalism topic. Right, onto Sword and Shield.
Same nostalgic.
This was bad. I remember this one.
Victim to getting stuck in the past. It streamlines and fixes many of the series' long-running problems, from excessive tutorials to the tedium of navigating random encounters. Simply put, Sword and Shield are the best Pokemon games I have ever played, and I've played them all.
Big words from IGN there. It seems that some people like this game and some people think it's an absolute underwhelming letdown. But it's no question that everyone was expecting the second Pokemon game on the console to look much better than it did, and include all pre-existing Pokemon, which it didn't, causing the whole Game Freak lied controversy. When they said the reason why they're not including all pre-existing Pokemon was because they were remaking character models and their animations, not just
and then the community ended up doing it for them.
Games. Then a Reddit post surfaced showing allegedly leaked data-mined comparisons of Sword and Shield's character models alongside character models from older games that seemed to completely contradict what Game Freak had previously said, aka Game Freak lied. So I think we're not just seeing people disagreeing with IGN's stupidly high score for another
god,
Pokemon.
Yeah. That I still think Sword and Shield is by far the worst Pokemon games like ever made, and that's saying something when most of them for the last like 12-15 years have been super lazy. Well, that's not fair. 15's too long. The last like 10 10-ish years have been super lazy. Sword and Shield somehow is all the laziness you'd expect from Game Freak and half the content as older titles. It's so bad. I couldn't stand it. I couldn't fucking stand it. I think I gave it a 50 on the moist meter. I can't quite recall, but I was really upset by it.
But also protest dislikes after feeling they had been lied to by the developers and IGN hilariously getting caught in the crossfire. Gotta love it.
Thanks the bits, Nelly. All Pokemon games have been the same for a decade. They were for a while, but they tried something new with Arceus, and while it wasn't like a full hit, it wasn't a full miss either. They're going in the right direction. I think Arceus has good ideas that they need to flesh out. But for the first time in a long time, Game Freak's finally trying something different. Like, drastically different, that is, as opposed to just the same formula they've worn out.
Cruising its way into our number 3 slot is their review of Days Gone from 2019 with 50,000 dislikes. What did IGN do now? Well, first off, this is the same reviewer that gave Uncharted 4 with its bloated third act a 9. So she was already on the Sony fanboys naughty dog list. And boy howdy, she pulled no punches here, giving
this game
Days
sucked.
Gone
this game was fucking trash on release.
Calling it
absolute
bloated
trash
as well.
Days Gone ultimately feels bloated.
It's
like
fucking
a movie
trash.
That goes on for an hour longer than it needs.
I know they made it better over
have.
time, but this is released. It was terrible.
There's definitely a good game in here somewhere. You can feel it in the crunchy combat and when running from an enormous freaker horde. Some fine-tuning and editing could have removed the tedium and highlighted what makes this game unique and interesting, but Days Gone rides strictly down the middle of the dusty road and never finds its rhythm.
Now, the general consensus is that the game is pretty good, and I think gamers felt the 6.5 was unjustified and found some of the reviewers' criticisms disingenuous. Like here, for instance, when she criticises the bad writing,
which Days Gone insists on telling largely through tedious, barely interactive flashbacks of him and his wife. The dialogue's pretty bad.
But only if you promise to ride me as much as you ride your bike.
On the face of it, you'd think the reviewer...
God, I forgot how fucking stupid the game was.
That line does seem really cringy.
Jesus.
But earlier on in the game, Deacon's wife Sarah specifically asked Deacon not to say that line at their wedding, only to surprise him by saying it herself. The reviewer also hits us with...
That doesn't change anything, it's still stupid.
Deacon can also unlock a slow-mo ability early on, which makes no sense for a biker, but it allows you to relieve the pressure for a moment if you get overwhelmed.
It's a game with guns. What on earth is she blathering about? Why should riding a bike stop us from having a slow motion ability in our zombie shooting game?
Because Days Gone's missions suffer from repetition across the board.
Oh, what's that, IGN? You don't like repetitive missions? Then why did you give the 888th Assassin's Creed game a 9.2 only 6 months earlier?
See, that's why this is what I thought the video would focus on. They give extremely high scores to games that are just truly mediocre. The ones here is like offending fanboys of a title, like Days Gone. That game was absolutely fucking miserable on launch. It was so bad. So bad. Like her review was far more generous than I would have been. It's most disliked. Yeah, I know. But I didn't realize it was just going to be these. I thought more people got mad about this, as opposed to Days Gone's not a 6.5, it's a 7. What did I give it? I couldn't finish it. I couldn't finish Days Gone to even moist meter it. It was too fucking boring and bad. And broken. A lot of people forget how broken that game released. I couldn't finish it. I hated it. I didn't even moist meter that shit. Give me 1 second though. I gotta pee real quick. I'll be right back. Alright, I'm back. Here's the Prime Queen and Caviar and the Resub Kelp in Pheno. Alright.
Yeah, another inconsistent IGN review, coupled with pissing off every Sony fanboy again, is why this review took the number 3 slot.
Oh, also, one thing that I was thinking about while pissing, I think IGN could save themselves a lot of trouble and stop being such a remarkable punching bag if they would just get rid of the pros and cons screen. Because they can't, like, actually convey their actual problems with a game through a con screen of like 5 words. So they need to just get rid of that shit. They did? Oh, did they? Nice.
Unbelievably, at number 2, we have a 3-way tie. Alien Isolation, Death Stranding, and SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated reviews
Interesting.
all managed to achieve 51,000 dislikes each, and all 3 games couldn't be more different from one another, which just showcases IGN's remarkable ability to enrage gamers regardless of what types of games they review. At this point, it actually starts to become impressive. When I began researching for this video, watching one bad IGN review after the other, I looked a lot like this. But by the time I got to the end, on finding out that they'd managed to reach 51,000 dislikes on 3 separate occasions, the agony and pure frustration started to melt away, replaced by amazement and a cheerful, bubbly, light-hearted sense of childlike wonder. So, how did IGN manage to rack up 153,000 dislikes across 3 reviews? Well, a good start would be giving Alien Isolation a 5.9 out of 10.
But when the genuine scares of being hunted by an unstoppable predator are so diluted by repetition and padding, Isolation's epic length really does work against it.
That's real bad.
Someone is going to make an incredible Alien video game that checks every box. But sadly, Isolation is not it.
Needless to say, gamers were outraged, and judging by the comment section, still are. And rightly so. It's one of the most atmospheric, tense...
Yeah, that is like actually one of the better horror games
ever made. Even 8 years after its release, it's still better than most, if not all, of the crappy horror shovelware games you'll come across today. And it didn't help that IGN gave Goat Simulator an 8 out of 10 6 months earlier.
You can't keep comparing 2 wildly different reviewers and wildly different games and their scores. That is an actual nothing burger. But yeah, this is a terrible, terrible, terrible review for Alien Isolation.
Laughable criticisms the reviewer makes is how he was killed, even though he was motionless and out of sight.
Fright dissolved into frustration as I got killed from behind for the umpteenth time, even as I was crouched motionless and out of sight in an air duct.
But leaves out the fact that he was holding the motion sensor that alerts aliens to your position, which the game makes perfectly clear, and it's just another case of IGN getting the completely wrong person for the job. A mistake they also made with their review of Death Stranding, which they gave a 6.8.
Certain landmark games in recent years...
a little low, but I agree. I didn't really like Death Stranding. I loved the atmosphere. I even liked a lot of the narrative, as confusing, convoluted, and messy as it was. I just thought the game overall was fucking miserable to play. A game I will never ever even remotely consider touching again. You gave it a 50? I don't think I gave it a 50. I thought I gave it a 70. I'm going off memory. I might have given it a 60. I think I was in the 60 to 70 ballpark. I can't fully recall. It's an absolute terrible game from a gameplay perspective. There's nothing fun about it. There's nothing enjoyable about it. And the tedium isn't there as like a lesson or a deeper meaning. It's just tedium for the sake of tedium. Fucking hated it. Hated the gameplay.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Red Dead Redemption 2 have managed to successfully tread the line between the rigidity of realism and the exhilaration of pure escapism. Death Stranding possesses similarly lofty ambitions, inventive ideas, and a sprawling, spectacular map, but it's all been saddled on a backbone made of repetitive mission design and arduous traversal that simply can't support its weight over
Tier 1 yummy in the prime, Tony.
This review apparently isn't for everyone.
Perfectly balanced.
This man plays RuneScape and thinks Death Stranding is boring? Yeah, but I'm under no delusion that RuneScape is fun. At all. It's not. Maxing is one of the most miserable things I've ever done in my life. I don't defend the RuneScape grind. Quite the opposite. And now you're really grasping at straws. Death Stranding is straight up fucking miserable to play. And, you know, in fact, I compare it a lot to RuneScape. Tedium for the sake of tedium. Grinding, rune crafting, I think I've spent the better part of like 250 hours over the last 2 months on rune crafting. And that's how it feels in Death Stranding. Just point A to point B a million fucking times, traversing slowly, Maybe setting up your zip lines to make it a little bit quicker, but not by much. I set up an elaborate network of zip lines to try and make it quicker in my playthrough, and it didn't improve it much. It's just fucking miserable to play. But there always was at least somewhat of a payoff with a really interesting world and story to it.
Everyone. And it's definitely a game you have to be in the right mood and frame of mind to play, which if you are, there's no doubt you'll find the 6.8 score absolutely ridiculous, and even if the game's not for you, I'm sure you'd still be able to appreciate that Death Stranding is a truly unique AAA one-off experience from one of gaming's living legends, Hideo Kojima. And lest we forget, in the very same month, in the very same year, they gave Pokemon Sword and Shield a 9.3 out of 10. Okay, last game in this three-way tie. SpongeBob SquarePants Battle for Bikini Bottom Rehydrated. How is it even possible to get 51,000 dislikes on your review of a remake of a 17-year-old mediocre SpongeBob SquarePants platformer that PS2 kids remember fondly? Well, from what I can tell, his main problem with the game is that it feels like a remake of a 17-year-old mediocre SpongeBob SquarePants platformer that PS2 kids remember.
It's exactly
fondly,
what people wanted.
It doesn't feel as good as the Crash and Spyro.
I don't remember what he gave it though.
Accompanied by some imaginative improvements, but those few bright spots aren't enough to bring Battle for Bikini Bottom's passable but simplistic gameplay up to the standard of a 2020 platformer.
That wasn't the point.
Let alone impressive recent remakes like the Spyro Reignited trilogy. All three playable characters, SpongeBob, Sandy...
That's a weird comparison, because Spyro just did exactly what SpongeBob did. They just kept everything intact. The thing is, with Spyro, it's just a better game, so it ages a little bit better. Battle for Bikini Bottom's still like just a fun, old-school, nostalgic game, though.
And Patrick have the same repetitive few lines of dialogue that they bleed out after finding collectibles, grabbing health, or hitting enemies.
I feel like a new sponge. Oh, sparkly! I love opening presents.
By the 30th time I heard them, I just wanted to stop playing.
He then goes on to call the remake of a 17-year-old mediocre SpongeBob SquarePants platform
dated, I bet.
PS2 kids remember fondly. Get this, too kid-friendly.
Battle for Bikini Bottom is an incredibly easy platformer with only a few truly challenging sections thrown in. The difficulty jump in levels like SpongeBob...
May came in here expecting something very different.
Such whiplash from the rest of the adventure. And when they're done, the challenge reverts to being simplistic and kid-friendly for its final few challenges.
Ultimately, us gamers are always happy when a game from our childhood gets a good remake, which is what Rehydrated is. Okay, it doesn't add any bells and whistles, but what did the reviewer expect them to do with Battle for Bikini Bottom? Add a Battle Royale mode? And the gamers that enjoyed this game as kids, who probably just wanted to take a load off and rekindle their youth for a few hours, didn't appreciate another disinterested, monotone IGN review raining on their parade.
That's so low for no reason. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Rough.
It's the big one. The Last of Us Part 2 is the most disliked IGN review of all time.
They gave it a 10, I think,
double
right?
that of our number 2 games, a whopping 91,000 dislikes. Spoiler alert, covering the build-up and leaks and the controversy around this game is another video entirely, but let me just cover the main kick in the balls. The first game is one of the most loved and critically acclaimed games of all
masterpiece,
time. No
fucking
question.
Masterpiece.
Not just for its graphics and gameplay, but for its storytelling, dialogue, and the relationship that develops between the two main characters, Joel and Ellie. And as the credits rolled on the first game, the 7-year-long wait for the sequel began. Then about a month prior to The Last of Us 2's release came the leaks, with one leak towering above the rest. The leak was a cutscene of Joel.
In IGN's defense, once again, no matter what they would have given this game, they're fucked. If you reviewed Last of Us 2, you were fucked. No matter what. If you loved it, you get fucked. If you hated it, you get fucked. There has never been a more contentious title, a more divisive title in the history of gaming. There is not a single one that even comes close. People feel very strongly on both sides, so no matter what, your opinion was going to be incendiary.
The main character from The Last of Us getting his head caved in by an athletic woman with a golf club. Needless to say, fans of the series were stunned. Not only did they have to deal with the main character of their favourite game getting killed off, but they then had to continue playing the game as the random chick that killed him. And so when IGN said
this is a weird way of talking about it. I said this in my Moist meter. I feel like the game was out of order. If they had done this sequence in a more, I don't even know a better word, but a more logical order, I feel like it would have been much better received. Every beat that the story hits is a fine beat in a bad spot. There was no reason to start with what happened. I'm going to try and avoid spoilers because I'm sure there's still people that want to play it. Like, there was absolutely no reason to start there and then make you, like, hate playing as that character the whole time. It feels weird. You had, like, if you didn't... Man, it's so hard to fucking get the thoughts across without the spoilers. Point being, they had a lot of moments that they could have put at the front and had a much more cohesive story that would be a lot more sensical for how it all plays out. And it would have been a lot better received. But they went, like, whole hog immediately. No, I'm not even just talking about the Joel stuff. Getting into spoilers again. They spend a lot of time with the Joel and Ellie flashbacks, like, sprinkled throughout randomly. They could have front-loaded those flashbacks more towards the start before the Joel death, and it would have made a lot more sense, as opposed to just going, like, full raw right away, killing Joel. And they could have also built up the Abby flashbacks a little more in the front, and then work up to her revenge on Joel, as opposed to having it come out of the fucking nowhere, like a goddamn jump scare out of nowhere, and then have you play as that character for 12 hours. They could have built it up, and then you feel almost sympathetic playing as them, as opposed to, like, try and, like, force you down the line to feel connected. They could have just done it in a better order, and it would have been a much better experience. And that's what I said in the Moist meter, too. Like, it just felt out of order.
But while Part 2 is a thrilling adventure, it still makes time for a stunning, nuanced exploration of the strength and fragility of the human spirit. The PlayStation 4 has one of its finest exclusives in one of the generation's best games.
Personally, I only liked the first game. I mean, it was brilliant, don't get me wrong. No need to dislike this video. Wouldn't that be ironic? But once I finished it, I didn't feel the need to ever play it again. We're not talking about Beautiful Joe here, let's be real. And whether or not The Last of Us Part 2 deserves
weird comparison.
To be the
Beautiful Joe slaps, though.
Of the most disliked IGN review of all time is up for debate. But what's not up for debate is that IGN continue to be the worst source of video game reviews on the internet. And
I'm very openly not an IGN fan, but there is much worse. There's just straight up much worse. Immediately off top of mind, Polygon. I don't think I have agreed with a Polygon review yet. They're not the worst. They are not good, but they are not the worst.
And long may they reign. Thank you all for watching. I've been the
Is Kotaku even like a legitimate like game review site anymore?
Like this, and let me know what
I don't even see the reviews anymore.
You off the most in the comments. For me, it's Greg Miller's review of Zombie U.
But for now, Zombie U is a one-dimensional whack-a-mole title with some clever ideas that never really come together.
Which lives in my head rent-free. Anyway, take it easy, and remember, never add too much water. And as always, hasta la vista, baby.
Thanks, the resub ability. That was interesting. I wouldn't have expected those to... Well, some of those I would have expected to be on there. I really thought more people got upset about the extremely high scores to undeserving titles, but there was only 2 of those cases in there, which is weird. Thanks, the resub Poopus and JD. I'm surprised God Hand Review wasn't in there. It's just not a huge title. That's probably why. It's more of a cult classic. Kotaku got disbarred from video games after the PS5 review. Oh, I forgot all about that, actually. Thanks to the resub Homie and Beetlejuice. In streams and Haley. What was that? I'm pretty sure I made a video on the old Kotaku PS5 review, didn't I? Here, let me see. This was going back. Where can I find like a more concise... Ugh. I don't want to just go to the actual review itself because it's a long review. Has no one done just like a full summation? I mean, I did make a video on it called Horrible Review of the PS5. I'm not just going to play my own video, though. But yeah, I do vaguely remember most of that. Thanks to the resub slime, the bits Fino. Thanks to the resub Poopy. Never forget IGN gave Halo 4 a 9.8. Yeah. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I truly don't believe any of these game outlets are paid off. I think a lot of that shit comes from fear of the fans. They know, like, they'll get eaten alive if they're too harsh on a beloved title. So they get very, very pussyish with it. I don't think they get paid off. They might. I mean, there definitely is a world where that's a possibility. I just don't think so. I really think it's more of just like the fear of being attacked by fans on Twitter or some shit. Here's the Prime Copper and the resub. Ev. And the bits of Bungie and Star. You should watch the Black Ops 3 comparison between PS3 and PS4. The game was entirely different on PS3, so much so it was a literal scam and missing entire modes. Eek. Have I ever given 100 on the Moist meter? Not yet. There's a couple things I would have, though, if they came out today, like Breaking Bad. 1 week till it might change. Yeah, Elden Ring wasn't far off. God of War Ragnarok, who knows? Maybe that could be the first 100%. God of War 2018 was super close to just being a perfect game, but the main drawback was just there's only like 4 enemies, and there's, I think, 3 boss fights, and everything else is just repeated. So it gets extremely stale just fighting the same shit a million fucking times. And the pacing was a little odd, but the game is super close. So I know Ragnarok fixes that. They have actual boss battles, they have actual enemy variety, and I imagine the pacing is going to go fucking hard considering where the 2018 leaves off. So, I mean, there is a chance that could be 100%. It's got all the pieces in place. Didn't you give ReZero 100? Man, fuck no. I love ReZero, though. I didn't give it 100. There's no anime I'd give 100 to. Not even my favorite one, Code Geass. Man, what the fuck? Didn't you say Minecraft would be 100? If Minecraft came out today, I'd give it 100, yeah. That game is legitimately, like, loved by anyone of all ages and has unlimited content forever. I couldn't think of a more perfect game, even though I'm personally not a huge fan of it. Nope, I did not, Tori. Upgrade was good, though. How do you still not like Minecraft? It seems impossible. It's not even that I don't like Minecraft, I just don't get into it. Like, when I played on custom worlds with friends, I enjoy it, but, like, I don't play on my own. You just haven't been in the furry RP servers yet. Yeah, maybe that's what I'm missing. Will you be playing Sonic Frontiers? Comes out the day before Ragnarok, so yeah, I'm going to try and bust that shit out. But the second Ragnarok drops, I'm absolutely swapping off Sonic Frontiers. I think it was very fucking stupid for the Hedgehog to go up against Kratos. I don't know why they'd do that. I don't know what the fuck they were thinking. There's the bits of Bungie and Nolly. I haven't played a lot of Bone Lab, but it seems cool. Thanks, the Resub Sour. A lot of Bungie. Thanks, the Resub 4Ox. Polygon gave Dark Souls 3 a 7 out of 10, but gave Dark Souls 2 a 9 out of 10 and called it the best Souls game. Yeah, that's Polygon in a nutshell, though. Like, this may be conspiratorial, but I believe it. I think Polygon doesn't even actually play the games. They say what they think the fans want to hear. I cannot think of a single review from Polygon I have ever read where I was like, yeah, that makes sense. I agree.